I sometimes wonder if it was a rich, deep Bordeaux, or maybe a delicious, strong Cab Sauv, or maybe a nice fresh Merlot. Well, don't know, whatever it was, we know that the wine that Jesus made in Cana at that wedding was the finest of wines, we're told. The story is very familiar, with Jesus and Mary and the disciples being invited to this little wedding in the village of Cana. Halfway through the feast, the wine runs out, and this would have been catastrophic for the groom and his family, bringing shame upon their home. And Mary invites Jesus into this drama and wants him to solve it or do something, and he says, no, my time's not yet come. And yet there's this really interesting little moment where she then turns to the staff and says, look, do whatever he says. And the next thing we know, he actually enters into this miraculous moment. So theologically, this is a little junction which is pretty fascinating, because we know that Jesus says he never does anything outside of the Father's will. He says, I only go where he sends me, I say what he tells me, I do what he gives me. So everything that Jesus does is in keeping with the Father's will. And it's like he says, going into the wedding, no, he has no permission. And then just in that moment when his mother says, okay, show up, this is for you, something happens, the light turns green, and what he does is he steps into the moment miraculously. This is a sign that John gives us. He calls it a sign, the first of the miraculous signs. So what's it signaling? Because signs are signals, they point to something, they show us something, they tell us something. Well, there's a few things going on. One of the details we're given is that the ceremonial washing jars are used then as massive red wine carafes. So Jesus is doing something quite brilliant here, really. He's taking the ceremonial furniture for a good Hebrew home, for the ceremonial cleansing, the Levitical washing of the family and all of the utensils. And he makes it into the party supply, doesn't he? He makes it the source of celebration. So there's something going on there where the old is being made new. Also, I think there's an allusion forward to the Eucharist, where Jesus again is with his disciples and wine is on the menu, and it becomes really the embodiment of the new covenant. He makes a new covenant and he seals it with the wine of the table of the Passover meal. Another detail is that the only people that really saw what was going on at this one were the staff, the backroom boys and girls, the serving staff, the servants, the guys at the dish pit. They were the ones who were privy to this miracle. It seems like everything else was done to just allow the celebration to continue, but Jesus and those few in the back room were allowed to see the glory, we're told. It was the first revelation of his glory. But I think the main purpose of this sign is a prophetic and poetic narrative arc between this, the beginning of John's Gospel, and then the very end of John's writing. Because if you think about it, this is the first revelation of Jesus' glory, and where does it take place? It takes place at a wedding feast. A wedding feast in which he steps into to bring the fullness of supply, the abundance of joy through the wine. The very end of John's writing, in the book of Revelation, what's the final scene that we're given in the last chapters there? Well, it's another wedding feast, isn't it? The wedding feast where Jesus is the groom, the church is the bride, and there is this joyous celebration. And it's almost like as the credits roll at the end of Revelation, the scene that we're left with is just this brilliant wedding where there is joy and delight and feasting and beauty and God's life overflowing into and throughout the lives of his people. And we're gathered together for this intimate and delightful celebration with our Lord, and it is presented to us as a wedding feast, the marriage of our Lord to his people, the church. And I think John is telling an eschatological story through the wedding at Cana, and looking all the way forward throughout the ministry of Jesus across history and into the future to remind us that the wedding feast is the place where Jesus delights to be himself, and to bring full supply, to solve the problems, to wipe away the shame of the family, and to make literally everyone's dreams come true, and does this beautiful work at the little village of Cana, and then on a cosmic level, when all things are wrapped up and enfolded back into God. So the first of John's signs in John chapter 2, I think, gives us a lot to think about and be grateful for. So I'll leave that with you. Till next time. Peace.